Joel Fair,
Present.
Mary Mosquera, Kathy Parks, Betsy Ronk, Brad Purvell, Jenny Scott, and Tina Freeman is not here.
Any public members that wanted to say anything? I didn't. Right, we need to approve or amend the agenda from the last meeting. Approve or amend the agenda for this meeting.
Ask for the updates on. You need a second on that?
Were those the discussion items?
Yes.
And you're making that form of motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Joel Fair,
4.
Mary Mosquera, Kathy Parks,
4.
Brad Purvell,
4.
and Jenny Scott.
Six action items from last meeting. Got the minutes for the January 30 meeting. Make a motion to approve. Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Joel Fair,
4.
Betsy Ronk,
4.
Mary Mosquera, Kathy Parks, Brad Purvell,
4.
and Jenny Scott.
So we want to talk about these, get updates from those 6 items from last meeting.
Since some of those are included, especially number 1 is our main discussion item, I will include the general updates for some of those, or the rest of them, in my report at the end of the meeting.
Is that okay with everybody? All righty. Staff reports.
We didn't do the discussion item. To do the insurance
Oh,
discussion
we
item.
need, review the insurance provider revenue gap. And substitute adjustments for future.
So I will start, and then if I don't answer, if you have questions for anything that I'm not able to answer, at least in the overview of it, please follow up at when I'm done, and feel free to interrupt. This is not an easy data set to assess. Lots of variables go into how many times a person visits the gym. And it can vary by whether or not they're a seasonal resident. It can vary based on if they have an injury. It can vary based on, you name it. So in order to break down what our potential gaps are when it comes to us allowing residents to utilize these insurance benefit programs, the cleanest way for me to look at it was to go through a couple samples of the different memberships or the different members that utilize these three categories and get a general idea of the frequency that they come, because there's two different ways that these folks pay us. And ultimately, it's a per visit type of situation. And that per visit rate varies by which provider it is. But at the end of the day, almost all of them have basically a maximum payout. So if you're on, we'll use Silver Sneakers as an example, they only will pay up to $27. Now that one was recently renegotiated prior to last month. That maximum rate was $25. So I was able to negotiate to the next highest bracket for them. And that's, you'll see at the bottom, it says, well, on the summary of the item, that we can negotiate reimbursement rates to a certain extent. Very rarely, and you'll see that I haven't been able to, it's not time to negotiate the Renew and Ash Fitness yet, but there's requests to both of those companies to get on a call with me to meet, to discuss. But with the exception of the Renew seasonal senior resident rate, that was the only one that actually offered us what we charge. Everybody else wanted to come in under what we charge for a monthly fee. So when you look at the majority of people that utilize these things, the majority do the maximum number of visits or more. So we're still getting the maximum that this company will pay us for. So the revenue gaps are completely, I mean, they're the best estimate we can get without going individual member by member by hundreds of members to find out exactly how many days they use the facility, how many days they use the facility for every month that they've been a member at the facility, and now you have death by data and numbers that you can't really quantify. So when you look at these, it's a very generalized idea, and I think this board can advise on kind of a generalized plan forward based on what we've got so far. Because our membership numbers can change by the day. People move here, people move out of here, people pass away, people decide that they're not going to be able to go to the facility anymore, they're physically unable, they sustain an injury, etc. So everything changes by the day, and everything is dependent on how many times that they visit our facility. Now, our goal is, for a multitude of reasons, to have people visit the facility as much as possible. And it's not just a matter of, well, we want to get the maximum dollar amount out of these insurance providers. We also want people to come because if you look at the statistics, and I don't know if any of you guys have had the chance to look at our State of the City, which this department produces, we just put it out last week. The average household income, the average household size in Cape Canaveral is 1.67. That's a lot of people living alone. A lot of people living alone. So when we go after things like Zach recently got a recognition from AARP for being an aging-friendly community, one of the factors that is included in that consideration is trying to combat loneliness, trying to combat isolation. So we do what we can to encourage people to use the facility as much as they can, as much as they're actually able. So if we're doing if we're successful with that, these maximum rates are what we're getting for the majority of our users, but there is no guarantee for that. So in looking at the number of people involved in each, or enrolled in each of these categories, as the little bullets on the front page of this summary note, there's certain things that we can negotiate and there's certain things we can't. And one of the, well, there was 4 common things that pertain to us making decisions on this that the city cannot really change with any of these agreements. The first one is we cannot provide differential access to the services based on residency or age. Now, Silver Sneakers, as it was explained to me by their representative, is 99%, and this is, across the board in all of their states, all of their facilities, they are primarily seniors. That's what Silver Sneakers is for. That's why they call it silver. However, there's a small percentage of people that receive federal benefits because of a disability. And you'll see there's 4 residents and 2 non-residents that fall into the silver sneaker category. Now, those 6 people are not quote-unquote seniors, but they fall into a disability category that allows them to receive this benefit from the federal level. The other ones, Ash Fitness and Renew, both allow kind of a mix. Renew seems to be very focused on the seniors, if you look at those numbers, but Ash Fitness seems to be all over the board. And we can't say, okay, we'll only accept members that are over the age of 62. We can't say we'll only accept members that are living in Cape Canaveral. We can't even say we'll only accept members that live in Florida. So that's the first rule that applies to all of these. The second one is, city can negotiate reimbursement rates to a certain extent. We would be hard-pressed to get our full asking price for anything. So we're very lucky with the Renew, that at least the senior resident rate, which has the most number of registrations, is in line with what we offer or what we charge normally. And then the city can elect or decline to participate in additional packages or benefit tiers offered by the providers. So Silver Sneakers is actually trying to branch out a little bit, and they were going to attempt to bring in other categories, which I declined because I didn't want the city to get involved in another year of stuff that's going to make this number go up. Not without this board's support anyway. And like I said, I'm currently waiting to negotiate the agreements that we have with Ash Fitness and Renew, because they have a lot more. They're not as standardized as Silver Sneakers, so they have a lot more different tiers where they allow any of their insurance enrollees to participate in different tiers of their program based on their age, based on their needs, based on how much they want to pay their insurance provider to get these additional benefits. And they are not limited to just fitness centers. Some of the people that pay for these additional benefits, depending upon the company, depending upon the person's age and their qualifications, some of these little bonus packages also offer things like, and with our insurance, it's called a care card. We can typically only use that at specific medical providers. But after speaking with a couple people in the community, and including my own mother-in-law, the additional little bump that she pays with her package, and I forget what company she uses, gives her a card that's like $300 a year that she can spend on items like over-the-counter medicines, any type of assistive devices that she needs, if she needs batteries for hearing aids, stuff like that. So it's not just a matter of you're paying them an extra $30 a month or whatever to just use a gym. There's other things that these companies are bundling in with that. So that is what it is. The last thing is, the city is under no obligation to maintain these agreements in perpetuity and may terminate these agreements without penalty per the policies outlined in the individual agreements. They all have escape clauses for both parties, and it's usually about 90 to 120 days' notice, and that's okay, because that allows us to properly inform our patrons, and that way they can make plans to either get signed up with a normal rate schedule or find an alternative place to work out. So those are the different items that we have associated with those. So if I was to, I mean, there's different things we can do from,
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
On some of the things that you just said? Because you had made the comment that most of the clients that, so basically in total, we have 583 enrolled members in all the programs. Okay. So you're saying that of those people, most of them use the maximum amount per month when they come here?
for the sample sizes I took from each group, yes.
Okay. So I looked at the revenue from last year for this sponsorship program. And it was $13,360. Well, if you do the math, divide that 13,360 by 583 people, that means we're only making $22 per enrolled member per year.
That's a yearly number?
That's
that
a
you get?
yearly number.
13,000 is the
Yes,
annual?
that's what the yearly budget said. And that's what was put into the next budget cycle. So something doesn't jive here. If all we're making is $22 per year per person.
Which is,
Now, granted, you've got snowbirds. So you could even say, well, what if these people only came 3 months out of the year?
correct.
Or 4 months out of the year or something. But even still, we're not making, we're not, something is not right with these numbers. We have a lot of enrolled people who do not come, or they aren't coming very often. I don't know. But that was the first thing that kind of jumped out at me that didn't really make total sense.
And that goes back to those variables that are all over the map that we have no control over whatsoever.
Exactly. But if you look at it from that perspective, that's all we're making, even on a monthly basis, we're only making $1,100 a month on our sponsorship programs. And so if these people are coming and using the facility at the maximum amount, we're using a lot of resources and administration to send out the bill to these rec sponsorship programs every month and all of that, more so than we're making any money at all on these programs.
Which is why I brought this to this board,
Exactly.
because some of these don't make sense to me, but I'm not going to be the one to start acts and programs. That has to come from our residents.
Well, the other thing that I had looked at, because you were able to provide the breakdown of the people by resident and non-resident, which was very helpful. But if you add all that up, you also find that 70% of the people in these sponsorship programs are not residents.
Correct.
So we're providing this nice service for everybody that doesn't live here.
Discounted service.
Pardon?
This discounted service.
This very discounted service for all of these people who don't live here. So that doesn't, to me, I thought, okay, that doesn't make any sense either. I mean, we'd be better off to drop our resident rate and just get out of the program altogether. We'd make more money. And I guess I have a problem with bankrolling the people in Cocoa Beach, because that's where most of them come from.
How do we know that?
How do we know they come from Cocoa Beach? Well, we know they're not residents.
But
So
how
they
do we
could-
know they come from Cocoa Beach?
Well, I'm just saying that if you go to the gym and you ask, and you talk to people, you will find out that most of them come from Cocoa Beach to play pickleball. Now, I don't know about the weightlifters and
Well, how
that
many
sort of
people
thing.
from Cocoa Beach come to the Nancy Hansen pickleball?
But they're paying, they're not getting a sponsorship
You
deal.
pay $2, that's like free.
No, they're paying $4 if you're
Ooh.
not a resident to play at
Well,
Nancy Hansen. But
It's the same-
here,
I'm not going to, it's the same issue, though. Hanson drives $20,000 a year, and the C5 drives maybe $30,000 a year in revenue.
well,
We
except
have to
for the,
fix- I
except
think
for
the
the,
point of this is we have to fix how to grow the revenue in the building, not to penalize the people from Cocoa Beach, Merritt Island, Titusville, who want to come to our building. The purpose of this, I believe, is how to figure out to minimize the $65,000 per year revenue gap,
right,
okay?
right.
And obviously, your numbers are spot on. 88% of the people that, from the sample poll are seniors. 11% are everyone else. So that's, I believe, why Molly has asked us to put our minds together is how to minimize that $65,000 revenue gap. Now, I come from a different background, and someone told me that, well, cities aren't supposed to try to make money. I get that, but our goal should be how to minimize our losses. And that is how you keep your tax dollars down.
Well, and that's kind of where I was heading, was to say it would be more feasible even to the people who are coming here to not participate in the sponsorship programs and to just allow them to pay we're giving them a senior rate anyway, to just pay the senior rate as needed when they come. And I believe probably you do have quite a few of snowbirds, so maybe they only come 3 months out of the year. And so then they would just pay accordingly.
But we don't know how many people will drop off because that's a great discount and some people would feel that they couldn't afford that out of their budget without that discount.
Well, but when you're saying that we really, the real purpose of the people is to serve and support the taxpayers, that's only 30% of the people coming to begin with. So you'd almost be better off to drop your resident rate and to help anyone like that, that might be struggling, and yet, still be able to make your revenue. I mean, because at this point, the revenue shortfall is not minor.
What if in doing that, where you were to get rid of these programs, you reduce your senior rate to something that we think would be feasible? Could you also have, I just wonder about the idea of scholarships for those who have financial hardship within the city, that they could apply for those things and say, listen, I want to be able to use a facility. Here's my situation. And then now you're looking out for those who were taking advantage of something like Silver Sneakers, that because it was part of their, government health care, and then we still are able to support them. Because really, I agree with whoever it was that told you that, Brad, that we're not, the goal is not to make money. The goal is to support the city, to keep us healthy, to have places for the kids to go, to have places for the seniors to go, to be able to do things in the middle of the summer when it's really hot, to be able to, we facilitate that. And as Parks and Rec, and culture and leisure services, like that's our hope, is that we're providing those things, not necessarily to fix the budget, although we do want to be wise. But when we think about people who might lose out if some of these things went away, can we provide something else
I think
to
that's
take
a
care of
really
them?
good idea. Do they do that, like for kids who want to do the summer program but are not able to necessarily afford to come?
We've done it for a couple youth programs in the past, and the challenge in, the challenge is having the folks demonstrate their ability, their challenges. So with the kids, and now we're looking at a kind of a post-pandemic thing. We haven't done this since the pandemic, because that changed how people utilize the public school system, and then there's other factors in there. But Cape View, as an example, up until this previous year was a Title I school, meaning that the parents have to demonstrate to the school that they need to be on free or reduced lunch for financial hardship. So we can, in the past, we have reached out to the school because the majority of the children that were participating were residents. So we could reach out to the school and say, hey, is Johnny so-and-so on the free or reduced lunch program? And they can say yes or no. So they could say yes or no, and that avoided us from having to go after the parents to provide all of this additional documentation. If we were able to do that for adults, we would have to look at what documentation is appropriate and how we would go about redacting any sensitive documentation that would be submitted. Like if I had to go just off the cuff, I'd say copy your tax return. We would, redact the social security number or anything like that, and we could make a determination based on that using the whatever the state determination of the poverty threshold is. So that could be one option for doing that. But we couldn't do that with people that are members of this, so, because we can't discriminate on that factor.
Right, but like if, as Joel was saying, if you made that in your communication to people that we were eliminating these programs, but if you were in need, you could,
Get
fill
it.
out something or provide something and we could figure out, should they get it for free? Should they get it at very, very reduced rate or whatever? I don't know.
And that would be, if that's the route this board would like to go, that would ultimately be an additional item on the fee structure that council would need to approve, because it'd be similar to the discounted reduction for different, for 501c3s and 501c4s to rent some of our facilities. They had to approve that discounted rate as well, because that's part of the fee schedule. But that's, easily done. And we could speak with the city attorney to make sure that we weren't asking for anything that was inappropriate in terms of, determining who is eligible and who's not.
Yeah, I've found that just having an application is a big threshold that people usually won't step over unless there's an actual need. And so then you don't have to set the restrictions incredibly high. You just have to be able to say, hey, can you come and show us need? And then we'd love to step with you, as the community, so that you can get what you want and what you need. But I do also realize that would be another burden on staff. It's a burden on staff that is currently not felt with this system. But if we're talking about $70,000 or $80,000 of revenue, might be a burden that's worth it. So.
Agree.
Yeah, because I think, what's kind of like with the veteran first responder rate or any rate, once you fulfilled that, you would then say, it's sufficient for the year. So then you would just go in to the system as that, so it's just a one-time review to see if they meet the criteria. Or, you know, the other thing you can do is to give them the criteria with the application or something, so they can go back and figure out if they qualify or not before they come and waste anybody's time, really. Otherwise, then it's just turning in their information and someone looking it over and saying, yeah, okay, that's fine.
And you could even restrict it to certain packages if you want. You could say that you could offer a reduced rate just for monthly, or you could offer a reduced rate for annual, as opposed to having the daily, and then it would be subject to a regular reproving of your status.
Well, you definitely want to do it at least yearly, since, you know, if you're going to make it somehow based on their taxes, it just makes it easier that way.
Guys, excuse me. I thought the whole purpose of this was to increase revenue, and all we're doing is moving dollars. If we're going to give Bobby, who's paying $30, what we call a scholarship, and I think it's a great idea, and where is that $20 coming from? That's coming somewhere else in the city.
No, it's not.
Where's it coming from?
Because you're recouping all of the money from the 70% who you would not be allowing to be part of the sponsorship program.
Okay, one person on the board said that the seniors have limited spending, or fixed income, I guess is the proper term. So if I'm already paying $30 a month to Silver Sneakers,
You're not. You're getting it for free.
whatever the organization is, ASH, I'm not getting that for free. I have to pay something to my insurance company. I'm not on Medicaid. What is that?
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
Depends on what you're.
Yeah.
So I think what we have to do, we have to and let me give you guys an example. I asked how much it would be for a senior, okay, to join the club or the C5. And the first thing the gal said to me was, well, it's $320 a year, but go to your insurance company and it'll be virtually free. Guys, yeah, no, spot on. So our goal is to get the community center to have a lot of use. Our goal is to minimize loss. We have to figure out what drives the 88% of the people that use this place to use the place. And because it's virtually free, because they use Silver Sneakers or whatever that program is. We have to look at our competition. And our competition is Planet Fitness, Fitness 21, and all those places. If you look at, without a discount, we only offer an 11% savings, the $320 versus $360, the $32 a month. No one tells that to people at our building. However, if we put a different program together, such as you're paying $30 a month to Silver Sneakers or whatever the name of that program is, that's $360 a year, but you're using our facility. What we'll do is for the first 6 months, we'll only charge you $10. And the last 6 months, we'll charge you the $32. That's a total expense of $252, or almost a 25% savings of what they're paying that other program.
But that's not exactly how the other program works.
I don't care how the other
Well,
program
yeah,
works, to be
but
perfectly honest. I'm trying to drive revenue to the building. And it's all about reframing what we have. If you look on the website, the first thing it says in the C5 building is, we have rooms for rent. Okay? If you look at the websites for Planet Fitness, it says, we have basketball courts, we have a swimming pool, we have all these different things. We're not using our not resources, we're not telling the public really the multi-use that building has. And the goal is to, and you're going to hate this, But the goal is to get as much money from these out-of-town residents that we can.
Can I direct it back to this particular, whether we keep renewing Ash Fitness or Silver Sneakers and how we deal with that? I think if you got higher rates, for example, from Ash Fitness, you could negotiate a higher rate from Ash Fitness, for example. And then if you could, if there's this possibility, if you get like, instead of just a day rate for the winter residents, if you could get the promise from Silver Sneakers or whatever it is, if you could get a promise of a minimum monthly payment from them, that might bring up your $22 a person figure, you know, that you calculate.
That's 22 a year.
I'm sorry,
You're getting $22 a year per person.
13, but I mean, I'm just saying that, you know, you look at it.
That's if they're here for a year.
Right, well, and then if you, like, but they pay them on a daily basis, based upon who comes or attends at the facility. So if you can negotiate with one of the programs or all of the programs that, you know, make up that delta between the people who use it all year round and those people who use it only seasonally. Is that?
I don't think you could make up that revenue.
Well, it's just if you're gonna talk to them anyhow to negotiate something, you know, talk to Ash Fitness before we decide that we aren't gonna accept these things. Because I think that is one thing you mentioned, Molly, that you were gonna,
Yes,
you have that on as a
that one's definitely in my sights for negotiations, because that's the absolute lowest. I was able to go up. I was able to go up on the Silver Sneakers.
right, but for example, Ash Fitness, you get the lowest rate from, and they have the fewest members, so you either maybe drop, you know, I mean, this could be a test case. If you drop just Ash Fitness and see how it goes with the general public, see what kind of a reaction that you get, because they are, you know, they are the worst of the three based upon this information. Or they raise their rate of reimbursement and/or pay a monthly rate for those folks who use it seasonally, but they pay it 12 months of the year.
See, and I think taking that route, offer them a chance to recoup themselves or to redeem themselves, and then pair that with Brad's suggestion for work on our pitch a little better, maybe take down our resident rate to make that a better argument for savings. I think combining all of those together will make a dent, will make a pretty good dent in addressing the revenue gap. Because
But there's no way you can address the revenue gap by keeping the sponsorships. I mean, that's just
not all
obvious
of them,
math.
yeah.
Obvious math.
All you can do is reduce the gap.
Well, you can't even reduce the gap because that's almost saying that if you're saying that people come on a fairly regular rate, let's put it that way. And you have to realize that if you're looking at people who only come seasonally, they're taking they're taking their membership and they're moving with it. So you're not getting anything for the time they're not here. So you know, you've got to look at so many different moving factors on that. And it almost, like I think you're, for the money that you're losing on this program, versus even cutting your regular membership rate for the city in half, you still would be making more money, way more money. And then as you know, maybe going Joel's route and giving a break to people who can't afford it. But that's only, you're looking at a very small number because you're only looking at a portion of the 30% who are city residents. You know, you're not looking at the fact that 70% are not city residents.
So the goal should be incentivize city residents and increase the number of people that go to the C5.
From the city. The city should
It
be
doesn't matter
utilizing it.
where,
Well, I think that
because we have to get full value, okay?
well, we're not,
That-
obviously.
Well, because we're accepting insurance, and in all honesty, people are on limited income, they pay this fee or not a fee, whatever it is. You don't want to get them upset, and you don't want them to go to Cocoa Beach or Merritt Island or places like that. We have a base of almost 600 people. We have to develop a program that the community wants to go to the C5. Whether maybe we have to implement, you get 12 free classes of yoga or stretching or something like that to kick that in as an incentive. Again, I encourage you to look at Planet Fitness, look at 24-hour fitness, they publicize their rates. There's no reason we cannot show them the savings. Again, it's a training process to our people at the front desk. The platinum rate at 24 Fitness is $40 a month. You get a buddy pass. Hey, so you get one free person to come in. You get a higher rate. You get the cycle classes. You get the pool, the sauna, the basketball court. We can change that. We can add, we got a weight room. We have an indoor walking track. We have basketball. We have pickleball. We have yoga classes. And that's for $480 a month. We're not comparing ourselves of what we're giving to people.
I think the biggest draw to the C5, and I think the front desk would probably agree, especially during the winter months and the time of the snowbirds when we're making our most revenue, is pickleball. My husband goes every day, and so he knows everybody there. And on a regular basis, there's 40 people in the morning that play for about 2 hours. Now, he doesn't even know how many other people come throughout the day to play pickleball.
And I would think there'd be a lot of.
Now, you can't, and the reason being, there is,
People there throughout the day.
yes, exercising as well, but I'm just saying, is you can't say, the only other place to play indoor pickleball is you can play in Cocoa Beach, which is very limited space, and it's $2 or something like that. But otherwise, you've got to go all the way out to Sharps or out to Titusville or way over into Rockledge to play indoors in the winter.
Let me ask this question, because I think I understood that if you play in a league, regardless of whether it's at Nancy Hansen or at the C5, you pay a little extra amount for playing in that league.
The leagues only play outdoors, and they only play at Nancy Hansen.
Those changes are coming.
Pardon?
Those changes are coming.
Oh, but then again, that's in addition, you pay the league fee, you don't pay that daily rate.
Daily rate. Yeah, so
You play on the day that you pay
If-
that day.
Nancy Hansen, for example, if you play pickleball at Nancy Hansen with just 2 people, for example, you would have to pay the $4 a person who can't live there. I mean, whatever, the sick person's health. But if you go to, if you have a membership at
C5.
C5, you don't pay anything extra if you're just playing as an individual.
Right.
But if you use a league, I understood that you pay in both locations,
yeah, leagues, tournaments.
regardless of whether you have a silver sneakers or not.
Right. When a city staff member has to sit down and make out a schedule and make out your brackets and all that other stuff, you're paying a fee for that because
Right.
that's a program that's
It's a
offered by
program.
the
That's-
city.
So
You
that's,
get some revenue from the pickleball.
A little bit. When we have organized events, yes.
yeah, but it's not to the extent of the daily people coming.
Right.
I mean, that is, and I mean, as much as you do have a lot of people who work out, and actually, my husband said that the reason why it's become very popular to use the C5 indoor, I said, well, why don't you go outdoors? I asked him, because he used to always play outdoor. And he said, because a lot of the people who like the C5 come there because, you don't have weather issues. But he said, because there's so many people to play, while you're waiting, you can go upstairs and people will walk on the walking track, or they'll lift weights, or they'll do some other stuff. They keep an eye on what's going on. Ooh, it's my turn. Down they go and they can play. So that has become very popular. Unlike any other health club, they don't have pickleball. So a lot of these people are coming here for that specific reason. And if we didn't have that, we would not have as many people coming just for the weight room or to play basketball or whatever that is. At least not during the time of the seasonal people. He said, when you're playing in September or October, there might be 10, 15 people playing. But now to have 40 people plus and every single day, that is huge. And the same happens at Nancy Hansen, obviously. But as much as you might want to compare yourself to, say, a Planet Fitness or, even down, if you're looking for convenience sake, which I think many people are, the only thing on the coast here is the Cocoa Beach Fitness. And yet they don't, it's not like they offer pickleball or anything like that. But pickleball is a very huge draw here. It really is.
So maybe you use dynamic pricing in the winter months. Have we thought about that?
I think there was some discussion about winter rates. The only challenge with rate changes is that it takes a staff member literally the day before the rate change goes in effect to change everything in the system.
Maybe that'll force people to buy an annual pass in advance, so we have the cash.
That could drive that, yes.
And just over a long period of time, I think if we pushed the benefits of what the C5 offers, like if that, say, perhaps goes out in the weekly email newsletter that you put out every once in a while, remind people that, oh, we have a walking track, because during the heat of the summer or a cold winter, people may not want to be outside, especially in the summertime, where if it's raining, that walking track is a real thing that would attract people, I would think. And just kind of people forget, just like you see advertising for everything else. Well, if we kind of spotlight the C5 periodically and list all the things that it has,
One of the things that, just as a thought process, one of the items that was on the different, the 7 different items for discussion that we talked about last time, was considering a joint public planning workshop with both us, Culture Leisure Services, and the City Council. And, this is, I feel like maybe this is bigger than just us, and it might be more helpful to kick this to a workshop where we could look at it in that manner and have the City Council, if they were at all interested, which I'm sure they are, to join with us. We might be able to put our heads together and come up with a plan that maybe would be workable from many different directions. And they would have a better idea possibly about if you were going to give scholarships, or can you do that, or whatever, things like that.
That can be included in a workshop. I'm not going to attempt a workshop until we have a clerk's office.
Until you what?
Have a clerk's office. We have a brand-new city clerk and no deputy city clerk at this time.
Right, but I'm just saying, that might be, it's not as if you probably could cancel, you have to give 120 days if you were going to cancel these, or 90 days or something anyway.
No.
You just said you had to give 90 days or
Oh,
120.
for the contract, for the
Yes, yeah,
contracts.
yes.
Depending upon which one it is and what time of year.
Yeah, so
yes.
that, no, what I'm saying is, instead of this, us trying to make a decision and say, oh, we think we should, eliminate the contracts, the sponsorship programs, and go to a different model, without really looking through a lot of the nuance here and different things, I don't know if the city, if we just said, okay, let's pass this out of here tonight, okay, we all agree, let's get rid of the sponsorship programs. This city council isn't necessarily gonna understand unless they listen to the tape tonight. I mean,
But
thank
that's
you
not
for
what we're
being
doing.
here.
We're not making decisions, it's just a discussion
This
tonight.
isn't an
Because
actionable.
But I'm
wouldn't-
just saying that I think that there are some items that are large that would benefit from having a workshop.
Yep, and that could still happen because this is all for the future
Correct.
budgets
Correct.
that we're not at
So-
yet.
it's
Can
part
I
of the
make a
bigger fee
suggestion?
structure
Before
as
we
well.
have a workshop and we bring in the city council, because they have a lot of meetings and whatnot, can we schedule perhaps another meeting and the board, the director, the deputy director, the management team, and the rec department bring some people from the C5 building, the building manager, and why don't we get together and formalize a program that we can present to the city council in that workshop? So we're organized, we're planned, and we can offer 2, 3 options.
Well, I think that kind of what a workshop's benefit is for.
But we need a,
Well, we
we
can
need
have
a
an
meeting-
internal
we need a
workshop before
meeting
we pull
before the
in.
workshop.
Well, wouldn't you have to still call it a workshop because it's not a
It would still
official
be, it
meeting?
would still be a workshop because it's a workshop for this board, just the same as council has workshops by themselves with other topics as well. So
Correct.
this board can have a workshop the same as any other,
Right.
an internal one. And council can even attend those and engage with those as well, as a
think-
workshop.
I think that might be something better, I mean, because, we can go round and round on this in many different directions for the next 2 hours.
But there's other ways for revenue too. I mean, I
Correct.
was mentioning before that I see lots of children, which is great at the splash pad, but we don't have, there's no controls on that at all. There's no resident, non-resident, age group, there's no charge for it. I mean, that might be, you charge $1 a child. I mean, I'm just saying, these are things that, if you're gonna shake your head, I understand that, but, I don't know if you guys have talked about this before.
No.
If you have, a way to get, even if you're, at least to recoup some of the money that is put out for that particular part of C5, if that is still part of C5, if that still is part of C5's operating costs.
Since there's no charge for it now, it would just go into, I don't, the C5 doesn't operate on its own. It's like when you have, I have to go back to my service industry days, there used to be something called domestic and premium. And then there was this weird little bracket in between domestic and premium where all of a sudden you have Budweiser and Michelob Light coming from the same distributor, but they charge a little bit more for Michelob. Well, when you're presenting this to customers, it's like, what's a premium domestic? That doesn't make any sense. So you would offset the loss from one to bump up the gain in the other.
And that's
So-
another part of my question. It's like, if we have revenue, don't throw anything at me, anybody. If we started to charge for parking at the beach, okay, for non-residents, and that sum of money came into that general pool, could that be used to offset the operating costs of what we see as a big sinkhole,
Absolutely.
in the C5?
And the beaches do fall under Chapter 54, which is technically our purview.
Okay, so
Just have an overall revenue workshop. And we can look at our fee structures, we can look at the accommodations we provide, such as what memberships, what sponsorships, and that could be a recommendation that comes out of that workshop, is that people need to start paying for parking at the beach if they don't reside in Cape Canaveral. It's not a new idea, but it's a new generation and a new world since the last time it was discussed. Things do. Correct. So is the consensus from the board tonight to schedule a revenue generation workshop where we look at all of our fee structures, all of our facilities, and compile a proposal for council to either consider or for them to join us at a future combined workshop?
I think you'd have to decide what you're gonna do after you have this, whether you have it organized enough to present it to a group of people like the city council.
So I think my game plan, just off the top of my head, would be have a workshop with this board, with my management team, and then at the end of that meeting, we would have a list of actionable items or ideas. At the next scheduled meeting of this board, we can present our draft to you, and you guys can tell us if we need to go back and edit it, or what edits can be made that we can just go ahead and make quickly, and then submit that with the help of the clerk's office to organize an actual joint workshop for council.
I think it would be nice to be able to move that forward if at a fairly decent rate, because I know by, it will go into the planning of the budget cycle for next year. And it would be nice to be able to have some better numbers if we're going to change things up for the next budget cycle.
So paid parking on the beach would also include input from
Well,
our...
yeah, but I mean, if we didn't, let's just say we didn't go too huge immediately, but just on some of the items that we discussed. If we drag this out for the next year is what I'm saying, because we meet here and then we meet again and then we do this and that, we might be able to address smaller chunks that could get, could get into place at a quicker time, and then future plans, which might be parking, because all of a sudden now you've got the logistics and how do you implement it, and just look at how what they had to put in place, the infrastructure and everything in Cocoa Beach to make that happen, and you got to have the app, or you got to have, some way to pay it, and blah, blah, and all that. That becomes a much larger animal, and so...
But not much larger, because we have a lot of cities we can look at lessons learned and a lot of recent things. And the last time that this was really seriously looked at for this city was in 2011, and the technology has come so far that it's almost, and it's not foreign, so we're
I
not
think that's
having to buy
something
big
that the
kiosks.
residents would want to have input into, though.
And they would have ample opportunity.
And so you'd have to have a community workshop where they could have input into that. I mean, that's a
They
big
could
thing.
participate in the joint workshop with you and council. Because all of those have to be public meetings.
But I mean, really advertised so people know what's going on and they would come, because many of them,
I think we could
Would-
facilitate this entire process within 6 months between the different workshops, provided our clerk's office can get their feet underneath them. And also, like I said, community and economic development would have some skin in the game when it came to beach parking, and we don't have a community development director.
yeah, well,
So.
that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem.
I make a motion that the Culture and Leisure Services Department has a workshop with the board, with the managers of cultural and leisure services within the next 30 days, and the topics to discuss: priority 1, revenue gap at the C5; Priority 2, increase revenue at the Nancy Hansen facility. Priority number 3, parking at the beach.
Can we just make that revenue gap?
Revenue gap at the C5 is priority 1. Increase revenue at the Nancy,
Department-wide.
excuse me?
I would like the second one to be department-wide,
Okay.
because like Manatee Sanctuary Park does not take a whole lot to run, but it brings in a good bit of revenue. So looking at these other little items, that goes back to my random beer reference, is that all of these other things, all of these other rental facilities or facilities that we could potentially rent, feed into one pot. We are one big Parks, Recreation, and Community Affairs pot. There is no more leisure services. There is no more cultural and community affairs. We are one department, and it all feeds into the same pot. We just need to make our moneymakers.
What are we called now?
It's been Parks, Recreation, and Community Affairs since March 7th, 2022.
And how did I get cultural and leisure services?
Because I haven't been able to change the name of the board yet.
Boy, did I have
All
a
in
senior
time.
moment.
Yeah, that's what
Oh,
PARCA stands for.
man. I had a senior moment.
Because it used
I
to
only
be-
want to pay $20.
It used to be Gustavo ran Parks and Recreation, or AKA Leisure Services, but nobody knew what Leisure Services meant. And then when the departments were split and I was made the Director of Cultural and Community Affairs, then he went away and we combined, and we are now one big Parks, Recreation, and Community Affairs.
I understand your point, Madam Director. However, I think our biggest 3 goals, number 1 goal is to eliminate the revenue gap in the C5 building. And we should not dilute everything. I agree, these other departments who runs them should be at the meeting, but that's why, in my opinion, we prioritize the C5, we prioritize Nancy Hansen, and then we can have all others. But when you have a $65,000 revenue gap, and our goal, in my mind, in the next year is to cut that in half, we need to figure that out. That's a hunk of change.
So that's what, do you have a second for your motion?
Thank you.
Call the roll.
Joel Fair,
4.
Mary Mascara. 4. Kathy Parks. 4. Betsy Rock.
4.
Brad Purvell.
4.
And Jenny Scott.
All right, so my next task in association with this particular item is to get identify a date that works not only for everybody else, but for this room, because we do kind of compete for this room. And that can be done via email consensus. I'm not sure if, I think we've done a couple special meetings in the past where we had to vote on it, but I need to identify a day. Once I identify a day of availability for this meeting, we have a requirement for 7 days to post agendas. So we'll be moving fast on this.
Why does the workshop have to happen in this room?
Because it's easier to facilitate here
Okay.
than it is anywhere else.
Okay.
Yeah, there's public speaking.
Not at the C5 echo chamber.
Echo chamber.
I've got an update on the echo chamber, but this room is outfitted for meetings like this and has the capacity to record and do all of those things, which I feel is important for the legacy of whatever's discussed in this workshop. And covers us for sunshine.
When I think what would fall into like the third grouping is a lot of the things that we did address or identify last time in the items for discussion, to increase opportunities and, community engagement and use of the other facilities and a lot of those things that we had already
Which I'll
addressed.
update you on when we get to that part of the meeting.
It'll dovetail.
Madam Chair? Yep.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Board. On the list tonight, we've got updates on Sandpiper Park equipment and Little League Field update. Sandpiper Park, Brad, I'm sure has probably noticed, and possibly Joel, we've had to remove one piece of equipment there and modify another piece to keep it there. Unfortunately, they were the two most popular pieces of playground equipment for the young families around there. One we were able to save by modifying, as I said, and a father went inside a tube to get his little daughter who got scared or something that stuck in the middle, and his foot went through it. So Molly and I have been hoping to get the equipment replaced because all of it in there is at its end of life cycle. And have been out there, and we were able to take the tube, fiberglass the hole over, flip it upside down, so they're not stepping on that weakened area again. The bad part was the spider web, the big red spider web, or I called it the octopus, which was everybody's favorite. We've had to demolish that and remove it. For the last couple of years, our guys have been going in. Was all metal frames, and the metal was starting to fray. And as I said, it's at the end of its life cycle. So we've been going back. You can't get new parts for this stuff. We've had the gentleman from the company that provides that equipment to us has told us they don't make the parts anymore. So we were using duct tape, whatever we could to keep the thing going because it was so popular. But recently, one of the supports had broke on it, and at that point, it really was dangerous. So we decided just to go ahead and take it out, which we did, and I've already had probably 7 or 8 parents come over and want to know when the new one was going to be here. Don't think they make that particular one anymore. But so we've had on the budget, and it's been pushed out. So we're going back again this year with another CIP, and hopefully it'll be approved and we'll get the equipment in there. We're ready to do it. We just need the approval from the council. Anybody got any questions on that particular
I have a
subject?
comment, Mr. Deputy Director. I think your team has done an excellent job in extending the shelf life of the equipment in the park. The only issue that I have is that due to people's agendas and kicking the can down the road in budgeting departments, that our children are missing out on outdoor activities. But I want to commend your team for extending the shelf life on these things.
They amaze me. They have been working on this stuff and keeping it patched together and band-aided. They know the nomenclature for the little O-rings and the parts that are in there. They rebuild the water fountains outside. They really are a good group of guys, and I'm very happy to have them working on our team. Then the baseball field, the Little League field, we did the clay, bought new clay and got the base paths done again. Bought new bases. We are still doing the mowing of the infield, and the contractor, U.S. Lawns, is doing the outfield. Last year we replaced the lights, removed the old incandescent sodium lights and replaced them with new LEDs, which work fine. However, in the right field pole, we have no light there now, and our guys again have been on the phone with technical support with the company we bought it from, and they have hand walked them through the checkout procedures. And the problem we found out is on our end, it's the electrical. And again, it's just old infrastructure. And so we are currently trying to get a contractor, electrical contractor. It's beyond the scope of what we can handle now. So I'm working on getting a contractor here to get some quotes on that. I have offered to Little League, had a couple of options. One, their games at night start at 6:30 and run to 8:30. If they wanted to start at 6, if that was something feasible, parents could get their kids there, get away from work and get their kids there. That was one option. The other one, and the only other one that we could do, was to bring a light set out there and set it in the corner back by right field. You won't have the height of the LED lights, but there would still be light out there. It's dark. I've been out a couple of nights just to see, and it's dark back there. I mean, that field caps out at 12 years old, so you're not going to have kids, hitting dingers out there, but still, it's not safe for them to be out there in the dark. So I'm waiting to hear back from the league board as to what they want to do, which way they want to go with tackling it. And that Molly said she's going to cover the conference room. So that's, if anybody has any questions. And Mr. Prevail, I would like to thank you for taking me out to the batting cage last week and getting the chance to look. And I told Molly I got to take her out there and let her see it. It's when I worked at Palm Bay, it reminds me of Fred Poppy Park down there. It's huge, massive. I had no idea there was anything like that this near to us. Very impressed with what we saw. But thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll piggyback off John's a little bit, and everybody's favorite phrase, the CIPs, which is the Capital Improvement Program. A lot of people say it's Capital Improvement Project, but they're not always projects. I'll start with the playground. The playground was originally budgeted for this fiscal year. It was budgeted for $400,000. We are eligible to try for a grant on that. I think with the current climate, both on the state and national levels, we will be in stiff competition for grants, even if they will consider awarding them. There's been multiple years, especially in recent history, where despite organizations, agencies working months and months and months compiling these huge grant packages, especially when it comes to state level grants, especially when it comes to the Florida recreation grants, where agencies have spent months compiling paperwork, months compiling quotes, selecting equipment, selecting programs, and when it gets to the governor's desk, he says, I'm not funding anything. So grants are, I'm still chasing the money for Patriots Park. It's been done since September of 2024, and I'm still chasing the $75,000 that we were guaranteed. So it's not an easy process. There a lot goes into grant writing. I do have experience in it, and we can hope in one hand and whatever in the other, and we'll see what comes out. That has been moved out to fiscal year 25-26, and I have actually updated that. I have a quote sitting on a shelf, which obviously isn't going to be good for very long because things change, especially in terms of freight. The equipment and the surfacing that I picked out would have been an absolute, Sandpiper Park would be unrecognizable and would be such a gem when this gets done. But I upped it to $500,000 and I kept it in fiscal year 25-26. The good thing about this, and what a lot of people don't understand, is that not everything comes out of our general fund, not everything comes out of just grants, but everything that happens for the most part at Canaveral City Park, it's in our CRA district. So CRA pays for these things. So this wouldn't be a thing that would come out of the city's general fund. This wouldn't be something that comes out of the taxpayer's pocket. So in my mind, there's not much reason to kick that can down the road unless there's a more pressing CRA item. So that one's in the works. I forget the date of our CIP workshop, but I can have Samantha push that out to you. I don't know if they've set it in stone yet, but there will be a couple things presented as part of our updated CIPs that you guys would be able to speak to, and maybe speak to the urgency or the need or the just general approval of, and the batting cages are one of those things, because that's something that can be a revenue generator as well. So,
Madam Director, once the PO purchase order is cut for the new equipment and everything for Sandpiper Park, what is the lead time for it to be delivered?
it's about, depending upon shipping. All of the stuff that I order, I tend to use Playworld, and the reason I tend to use Playworld is their equipment lasts for 20-plus years, and they are made in America. Everything is produced per order, which does make it take a little longer, but everything's coming out of Pennsylvania, not Canada, not China, not Mexico, not Japan. And then it's installed by local crews, and we typically are able to avoid having to go out through a lengthy bid process, because we're not the only ones that see the value with Playworld services, and almost every county in the state has had a contract with them at some point in some time, so we're able to get the reduced rates based on some of those larger entities that utilize their products and installation services.
60 days once the PO is cut? 90?
More like 12 weeks, because they have to produce.
90 days, okay.
What was the cost on that Sandpiper Park?
I've budgeted $500,000, because that would be the full replacement of every single thing in there. It would be removed, and every single thing in there needs to be removed.
I don't
Everything.
see that in any of the CIP or.
Page 122 of this year's budget. It is CIP CR number 1.
The CR number 1 I have is Canaveral City Park redevelopment.
Sandpiper Park is located in Canaveral City
Oh,
Park.
it's part of that?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So you'll see it
And won't
as,
it be ADA compliant also?
my goal is to do pour in place. So it will be the first park that has not only universal design equipment, but also parking to accommodate universal design equipment. So. And then that will be presented to council with a $500 price tag, just because everything goes up, and I don't want to come in over budget. I'd rather come in under budget. But it will definitely be a park that will be well-utilized, and something that we can really be proud of, that can match the attractiveness of our new splash pad and our new building. Any questions on those two items? All right. Based on the amended agenda, I can speak to a couple of these items before I get into the originally proposed. We discussed the revenue gaps, increased community engagement by posting meetings. This meeting was posted at all of our city facilities, so that has already begun. Improve the rentable facilities and facility rental promotion. We've already started doing that. John mentioned carpet in the conference room. Acoustics were almost, I don't want to say they weren't a consideration, they weren't even in the universe by the folks that designed that place. So one of the easy fixes that actually kind of, in a way, helped me offset the future maintenance costs, the flooring that they installed in certain parts of the C5 requires a great deal of maintenance, and chair scuffs, boot scuffs are impossible to get out, and we had to bring in a company. John got multiple quotes. We went with the lowest bidder on that, and it was costing us, yes, like $2,800 a year just to maintain these floors so they didn't look bad. So on top of the maintenance and the inability for anyone to hear themselves think if there was any bit of noise in there, and the fact it's a conference room, which is designed to have people talking in it and being able to communicate and engage, I had carpet installed. So the carpet's similar to what's in here. It's little squares. If somebody spills something, we got another square. We pull it up, we put it down. Oh yeah, I watched it. I watched them install it on the security cameras. It was the greatest slow motion video I've ever watched. And if it matters, because I'm one of those weirdos that picks colors based on names. The color is called space. So, random trivia fact for you. So in saying that, another CIP that's being proposed, and I don't have it in front of me because it's going to be up for consideration, is some improvements for Manatee Sanctuary Park to clean that up, because that is one of our most rented facilities, to make it even more attractive and worth the price that you're paying to actually rent it, to the point where we may even be able to look at increasing that in future years once we finish all of the projects. Typical to my tempo, I try to phase things out because of obvious reasons. I phase things out at my own home. Eventually, I'll get to my screen enclosure. But if there's something more pressing in the way, then we take care of those things first. So it'll be probably 1 to 2 fiscal years for me to tackle everything that I want to address at all of these other facilities. But we're getting there slowly, and that is already underway. Vendor opportunities and franchise contracts. We haven't had time to get to that because I currently have an RFP out that I have a deadline to do the assessments on. And that is also something that I need to work with Community and Economic Development on, because there are codes and rules that I have to follow when it comes to franchise agreements and working with businesses when they want to do business on city property. Hosting events that raise revenue and awareness for our facilities. Missy just came up with a new tournament, the Big Dill Tournament, that it's happening next month. Next April is, for the rest of the country, April is the beginning of pickleball season. For us, it's year-round. So we're going to piggyback off the National Day, or National Month. So at the April City Council meeting, we have a lot of volunteers and a lot of residents that have worked very hard to build the pickleball community and build the interest in our facilities. So we're going to have them accept a proclamation from the mayor that recognizes National Pickleball Month in the city of Cape Canaveral, and thank them for their efforts in helping us basically generate revenue and build meaningful activities that engage people socially, and healthy activities. So that's already underway. We've got a couple other ideas on the table, so when we start getting into our budget year, or our budget season, we can start discussing on where to prioritize that, because events cost money. Number 6, work with the Community and Economic Development Department and city leadership to ensure Visit Space Coast and the Tourist Development Council recognize and promote the city of Cape Canaveral as a separate entity. I'm going to give Community and Economic Development a little bit of breathing room for the moment. And once we get somebody in there that can get their feet underneath them, we'll hit that hard. I was reminded of it. For those of you that have talked to me at any length, I do a lot of trail runs. And I did a trail run earlier this month. And I was going down the turnpike, and I was on I-75 for a little bit. And for a short stretch, it was visit Cocoa Beach, visit Port Canaveral, repeat. And the more of them I saw, the more frustrated I got, because there should have been one more in the middle, and there wasn't.
Don't forget, visit Ron John's.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Cocoa Beach, then Ron John, and then repeat, because there was a couple of those. I had to look down at my maps to make sure that I was in the right county still. I couldn't believe that they were all the way over there, because just as a point of reference, I had to drive 3 hours to go to this race. I left my house at 2 o'clock in the morning. So this is literally 3 hours from here. They are advertising everyone but us. To that point, I didn't see anything about Melbourne, but that is what it is, or Palm Bay. And the next one, Joint Public Planning Workshop for the Leisure Services Board and City Council. We discussed that earlier. So that is coming. As far as the next 2 items, tennis court proposals. So Marcy worked really hard, and she talked to multiple vendors, vendors from all over Florida. And while we have had lots of feedback, both from pickleball and tennis community about NIDE. NIDE was not willing to do the work that we were asking for, the scope of work, and they would only give us a quote for full remove and replace of the tennis courts. So we started looking around and just throwing out, invitations to, hey, please contact us. We're looking for some work on our tennis courts. Must make a site visit because we wanted people to set eyes on it, not just ballpark it in their head. And this one company out of Boynton Beach, Florida, responded to Marcy, and he was very upfront. He said, I'm coming from South Florida, so any quote that I would give you would have to include extra for per diem and travel for the staff members that he had assigned to work on this project. So we knew his numbers would be high. But what he did was he gave us 3 scopes of work. He gave us a scope of work where we don't do anything about Court 5 and we just pave over it. And then we all know that in about 6 months, that dip is going to come back and it's going to get worse quickly, just like it did with the last one. The second scope of work they gave us was the full remove and replace. Once again, it came in the $400,000 range, which council was sticker shocked as much as I was, but it's not really feasible, at least in the immediate future. The third quote he gave us, and we had to make the argument for it because NIDE made such a strong argument against it to the point where they wouldn't even provide a quote for it, was to remove Court 5, replace Court 5 after they fix whatever's going on underneath it to recompact, firm it up, and then resurface all 5 courts. So the question came up, well, is this slab not going to sink? And the way he proposed it was, or the way he explained it was, yes, it will. It will eventually separate, but the separations and the cracks that will occur will happen so far in the future that we might not even want to worry about that, given the current condition of the courts and the fact that they do need to be repaired. And at the end of the day, when it does separate, it's not going to be separating in a playable area. So it's going to separate between courts and not in the middle of a court and create a big hole in playable area. The current hole is not in what's technically a playable area for pickleball, but it does impact tennis. So either way, since we're going to need to continue to share the courts, at least for the foreseeable future, we need to make it playable and safe for everybody. And that middle quote, the original plan that we had asked people to quote, actually came in a lot closer to the budget that we currently have. It might go up a little bit because we are going to have to, in order to remove that court, we're going to have to remove fencing. Some of that fencing is not going to go back up the way it came down. I can't even guarantee it's going to come down whole because it's as old as the courts in some areas. So there might be a little bit of growing pains when it comes to that, but ultimately we're going to move forward with this middle range and see what kind of quotes we get, see what kind of bids we get back. And my goal is to have this started by this summer and to have everything reopened before snowbird season, ready to go. So that's the update on that. You have any questions?
Did you say that it was going to stay within the 115 budget that?
It will be closer to the 115.
Okay.
We don't want to do what was done in previous years go with the lowest bidder. We want to go with the lowest responsible bidder because we want some pride in workmanship, and that's not what we've really seen with the previous contractors that were willing to do the bare minimum for the bare minimum price. So we want. Depending upon how fast I can get the bid out, the bid would have to be out for about 30 days to get enough people, and it depends on scheduling after that. But my
Did the contractor give you any idea of what, like, how long it would take for each of those?
depending upon the contractor, and their schedule, because we have to fit into their schedule as well, between 28 and 48 days. So we won't have too much downtime. But I anticipate that just getting it fixed, people will be patient to have something nice to play on again. So, and if we can get it done over the summer, the impact will be minimum. Our tennis leagues do have, not our tennis leagues, but the tennis leagues that come, are independent leagues, such as the USTA and the Space Coast Ladies Tennis. They have other places that they can play. Obviously, it's a revenue hit to us for a month or two, but it will be so worth it in the end, and we'll be not just on par, but we'll be better than par when it comes to some of our surrounding facilities. So, which brings up another one, a CIP that I forgot, but it's related to this. One of the CIPs that I'll be proposing, and obviously everything's subject to council approval and when they want to do this, but I'm also going to propose the removal of the shuffleboard courts and have them replaced with dedicated pickleball. But we'll see how far that flies. So there's a lot involved in that. So we'll see what the council's take on that is, and my counterpart in capital projects is also looking at an option where they could put stormwater stuff underneath that. It's a little bit smaller of a space than the entire tennis court complex, but it could still have the potential to retain enough water to help not only the folks on Fillmore, but also, in the surrounding areas.
Madam Director, I have two questions, or I just have one question about two things. Is it possible for you to get volunteer labor for either the playground project or something like tearing down the fences? Are any of those feasible for volunteers, or are we not allowed to do that?
Fencing removal, absolutely. You're definitely going to sign something.
Right. Yeah, obviously. I mean, that's.
When it comes to playground equipment, I'm going to leave that one to the professionals
Okay.
because there's a lot of safety standards that go into it.
But
and
even demo of the old stuff, could that be something that?
You're
Yeah.
definitely going to have to sign something, but I'd be more than happy
Absolutely. Okay.
to let you help us rip it out, because none of it is salvageable in the sense where we would be able to utilize it somewhere else.
Right.
The only thing that I've discussed so far tonight that's salvageable, and I actually might move forward with it anyway because I've been eyeing it for quite some time, a lot of the fence needed to be removed at Patriots, and it was just a small perimeter fence. It wasn't anything major like the tennis court fences, and there are some pretty good sized portions of the shuffleboard fence that I was wanting to repurpose anyway over at Patriots Park. So I might go ahead and do that, because that will also solve another problem that we have. The shuffleboard courts only gross about $600 a year, $700 on a really good year. But in the meantime, when no one's using them, we have a couple individuals that like to use it as an off-leash dog park. And off-leash dog park, never mind the one that's actually directly across the street from that. So that would kind of reduce the misuse of that in that nature, and it would make our Patriots Park a little safer for the little ones that like to take off. So, because we'd be able to replace the fence in that, because the fence that was there, all of it came out for the most part during the playground removal, because it was just, not only was it blocking the equipment from getting in, but it was never going to go back in the way it came out. So I try to repurpose things when I can, but I'm also not afraid to say this is trash. So speaking of that, tailing right into Patriots Park, the community garden. So the car wash is done, and I had our new building official, one of the responsibilities I have when we have new team members like him come on is I give them a tour of all of our facilities and discuss the needs, discuss the challenges, discuss anything that might pertain to their department. So as we were passing that park, the vehicle that he was driving was incredibly dirty, and thank you, pollen season. So I said, why don't we take the vehicle through the car wash? I need to see something real quick. So I hopped out, and it was last week when we had a couple really significantly windy days, and the wind was coming out of the east-southeast to south-southeast. And I stood at the entrance to the car wash as he pulled in, and then I walked down the side and stood at the exit of the car wash when he pulled out. And the overspray was so minimal, I would not have noticed it had I not been standing there staring at a car wash waiting to get sprayed with something. So the car wash doesn't have a direct impact or toxic quality of whatever's coming out of that, on the fruits and vegetables that are being grown there. It's just almost completely blocked from visibility. So what this board wants to do with the community garden is a little bit, it is what it is, and it's something that can be considered. It could even be considered part of the revenue argument, but one of the ideas I had, and I was working with Zach, who is part of our Community and Economic Development Department, but he works specifically in the Resilience Division. That department has implemented in a couple different areas different grant programs. And one of those grant programs was if you needed a facade improvement on your home, a paint job, help with a roof, something like that, anything that would make your neighbors be like, oh, thank you. The city reimbursed people for certain amounts to help with minor beautification projects on their own property, whether it be putting in sustainable landscaping, removing, I believe one of the options was if you had a big concrete space of impermeable whatever driveway, to put in something that's more permeable to replace that to, improve drainage. And I asked him what the possibility would be of approaching different HOAs and condo associations and offering a grant to those, because those folks don't have dirt, because they're second floor, third floor and up, and encouraging them to use grant funds offered by the city, small grant, like $2,000, to put in a community garden on their premise, which makes it a lot easier because Patriots Park doesn't have any parking. And so if you're coming and you're bringing your own plants and your own supplies and you're doing it in a vehicle, you are parked illegally. Or you are parked illegally on somebody else's private property, because now a lot of people, including myself, when I visited, would pull up, and now there's a car wash where I would pull up. So you are literally on-street illegal parking just to do anything there. So it would make it a lot more logistically easy for people to grow fresh fruits and vegetables and get that outside time and cultivate whatever they're going to cultivate. And that would target the specific areas that actually need access to that the most, as opposed to individuals that could very easily grow some tomato plants in their yard. So I'm working with them on different ideas for that, and we're probably going to start with a survey to make sure that that's something that these different communities would have interest in, because they would obviously have to have some common area to facilitate this. And I can hopefully know more on that by the next regular meeting for this board, because that's something that they're going to have to discuss with whoever they hire as their new director as well.
Can you do something similar to that with the shuffleboard courts, since we're going to get rid of them? I know some of these condo communities have some shuffleboard courts. Maybe we can pay that, I don't know. But we do, and I'm saying we need to generate the $600, but obviously there is a use. Other people have shuffleboard courts. Maybe they'll let our people go there for whatever.
It's worth the ask, and we are sitting on several racks of very old but still equipment. Before I left Leisure Services in 2019, I had replaced most of the pucks. So that's the expensive part, because that's the heavy stuff. I mean, the shipping cost, shipping on those is always more than the actual pucks themselves, because they weigh a ton. But yeah, we could even...
At the same time that you're asking about the garden, ask about shuffleboard.
Ask them if they have shuffleboard and if they'd be willing to let people come in and pay for that. That's an option.
Most of the just boots on the ground at the counters, a lot of the condo communities around here have replaced their tennis or have modified them for pickleball. People just don't use them. They don't use it there. They want to come us to maintain everything. So there's a lot of actual pickleball space available here in the city limits that just doesn't get used. They want to come to Nancy Hanson, or I guess it's the camaraderie, just being together like Ms. Ronk was talking about, so
Yeah, it's
many
the
people.
social.
Yeah, but. And it's only on Tuesdays when the snowbirds are here, when the shuffleboard courts get used. Other than that, they just sit there. So. And for the unlicensed dog park.
Quick question, is the splash pad running?
No, it is
No.
not.
Okay.
We're waiting on equipment.
Okay, thanks, sorry.
Any other questions for staff?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Joel Fair,
4.
Mary Mosquera, Kathy Parks, Betsy Ronk,
For.
Brad Purvell,
4.
Jenny Scott. Thank you.